Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. My guest this week is Naren Aryal. As CEO of Amplify Publishing Group, Naren advises industry experts and thought leaders on the opportunities and challenges that exist in the ever-evolving world of publishing. Naren's visionary leadership has spearheaded a critical disruption of publishing industry and legitimized the fast-growing sector of the market to date. At each turn, he has created more opportunities for deserving authors across genres, not only to publish their work, but to publish their work well. He launched Amplify with a single title in 2003 and guided it to what it is today, one of the fastest growing and most respected hybrid publishing companies in the world. At the core of Amplify's ethos is Naren's prioritization of innovation. Over the past 2 decades, he has brought new and exciting ways to publish to the fore. Prior to entering the book world, Naren worked as a lawyer advising technology companies in Washington, D.C. He is a frequent speaker on publishing landscape, content development, and positioning, the book and production and marketing, and also author branding. I loved our conversation. It was so interesting, insightful, and you know what? Funny. So give it up for Naren Aryal. How are you, Naren?
Hey, Kate, doing well. Thank you. Excited about this conversation. Let's have some fun.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And you, I would just thought we would start off by telling everyone what you do. I just think it's incredible, your whole journey since the early 2000s and how much you are disrupting the publishing industry, really.
Yeah, thank you. So, I am CEO of Amplify Publishing Group, and we are what is called a hybrid publishing company. For those of you that don't know, hybrid operates in the space between traditional publishing on the one hand, those stuffy New York houses, and self publishing on the other hand, which I'm a big fan of self publishing. So, we help authors, primarily thought leaders, create game changing books that are editorially excellent, well designed, beautifully packaged, and our authors primarily, obviously they want to sell books, but they're also using a book as a central piece of their overall platform, their thought leadership platform. And so
Yeah,
that's what we do. I've got a great team. We're in Herndon, Virginia, and we're excited to have this conversation.
I love that. Where in Virginia are you? Where is this?
So Herndon, Virginia is very close to Dulles Airport.
Oh,
Dulles,
okay.
5 minutes away from us.
Ah, okay. Sounds so remote. I'm like, what field are you in? No, I don't know. So I'm so happy to this conversation with you. So we always start off, Naren, by asking you, do you have a favorite joke you like to share?
Well, I've got a couple, and I'm going to sprinkle them in. And of
Yay.
course, as a publishing professional, all my jokes are related to reading, writing, and the world of books, right?
Of course.
So, what dinosaur knows a lot of synonyms is what I wanted to ask you, Kate. Do you
I
know?
have no, I have no idea.
Well, it's a thesaurus.
That is so cute. Come on.
Well, okay, all right. So I got that out of the way. So as we move forward, metaphors be with you.
I love it. Go on, go on.
I
Boom,
got,
we killing it.
yeah, I got more where those came from. So, but we'll sprinkle them throughout. Let's go.
It's so funny because one of my first jokes I ever wrote for my stand up was a reading joke where I had to go to a parent teacher interview. And I
Yeah.
go, and it's this old British woman. And she says to me, she's like, Miss Davis, I just want you to know that your daughter is reading extremely well. And I'm like, that is amazing because I didn't read my first book until I finished high school. And she said, no doubt. I know, she was so mean. And then she said, well, what was it called? And I was like, well, it was called. So now you're pregnant. Anyway, it doesn't matter, Naren. It's a
Oh,
joke.
oh,
Boom. It
oh.
was more a pamphlet. It wasn't even a book. Ah, I
Okay, here.
love it. Okay, so now you have this big team and a lot of different publishing aspects within Amplify. And so, how are you using humor to lead your team?
Well, that's a good question. So, first of all, I'll say we do serious work. We work with thought leaders who want to showcase their thought leadership and they're coming to us, they're entrusting us to help put that out in the market in a very professional way that's going to move the needle for them, right? And so, really important work, and we're honored and privileged to have that before us. But on the other hand, we're not surgeons, we're not in the ER, right? And so recently, LeBron James was asked about a loss. The Lakers lost a playoff game against my Denver Nuggets, and he said at the podium, this was just last week, he said, it's just a basketball game. And so, fans were like, what are you talking about? It's just a basketball game. I live for this stuff. But if you think about it, what he was saying
Yeah.
is, yeah, this is important, but this isn't life or death. And so I would never, when issues arise, I would never say that to an author or client. Sometimes it does feel like life or death, right? And so part of that is perspective and understanding that it's okay. We can interject some humor, some levity, some authenticity into our conversations, both internally and with our clients. And I think our clients, our author clients, actually respect us for that and respect the human nature, the connection. What I always say when we start projects is, we're going out on this lake in a canoe together. We're going to be paddling together, all trying to get to the other side. Something will go wrong. I guarantee you. I've never worked on a project in 20 years of doing this. I've never worked on a project where it's been smooth sailing all the way. And when
Yeah.
that something happens, you just want to know that the person you're in the boat with shares your goals. And so, as long as you know that and they know that, I think it's okay to show some personality. And personality for me includes humor. And so, that's the overarching theme that sort of try to live by in my relationships with our employees and our clients, and I think that served well.
I love that so much because and I'm curious, do you find when you do use levity in those situations, when the shit does hit the fan,
It
so to
does.
speak, it does.
It always
Uh,
does. It's so
always, always. As comics, we say the bomb's in the mail. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It doesn't matter where you are in your career. It's pretty consistent now, but it's just like, okay, it might be coming. But do you find when you use humor, does it help so in terms of your employees, does it help you really bring them together as a team?
Yeah, it does. And I think part of it is knowing who you're dealing with, right? And I'll answer this question by giving you an example. Kristen Perry, she's our VP of Ops. She's been with us for 8 years. And I learned early on, and she's much younger than I am, that
Yes.
she is a Seinfeld fan. And you'll appreciate this. Okay.
Yep.
And I always said, you're a little too young to be a Seinfeld fan. But she just sort of fallen into the show and loves Seinfeld. And so every once in a while, I'll send her, it could be, Saturday at 2 in the afternoon, I'll send her a Seinfeld meme.
I
And,
love that.
that's an example of a connection that we have where we can sort of, put our guard down and it's funny, right? And so
Yeah.
that's a good example. And so you got to know who you're dealing with across the
Know
board,
your audience.
know your
Yeah.
audience in your world, and then also we're operating a professional balancing we're operating a professional environment, right? And so there are boundaries and lines that we won't cross, and I think
Yeah.
that's a cultural thing,
Mhm.
company culture thing. And so, knock on wood, we've never had a problem where somebody has tried to use humor and did it in an unprofessional way. But the Kristen example is a great story that sort of, I think, sort of speaks to how we try to approach it as a one-on-one, know your audience type situation.
Yes, and there are many different ways to bring humor and levity into our workplaces. It doesn't have to be telling, a joke or whatever. It can be a meme. It can be connecting people with, a funny comic or a little, joke or ditty. It doesn't have to be. There's lots of ways to bring humor into the workplace, and it doesn't have to be
Yeah,
telling the funniest joke. It can be that meme or connecting, and there's so much content out there,
there is.
Yeah.
There, and it's also what I found is disarming is take aim at yourself first, right?
Yes.
Self-deprecation is a wonderful way to
Huge.
introduce levity into a work environment, and I'll give you an example of that. I don't know if you know, but we got our start publishing children's books.
Oh,
Uh,
I didn't know that.
yeah, 20 years ago, we got our start publishing children's books. And they were children's books that starred university and professional sports team mascots. And they were licensed
Wow.
by the
Yeah.
universities, licensed by the sports teams, leagues and sports teams. And these were internally produced. We weren't doing them for clients. And so I always say in staff meetings, I frequently say, I said, I can't even look at the initial books that we produced because the quality isn't anywhere near the quality that we produce today. And so on its face, it may sound like I was saying something bad about a product that we produced, which is true. The quality has improved in all genres in terms of what we do. But it's actually a compliment for the people that are here now and producing books now, to show how far we've come. And it shows improvement and progression. So that's an example.
I I love that. And you know what? Like I always find if I watch an old video of myself, I'll be like, that's a great moment in time. I already have 10 other jokes that are better than that. But
Yeah.
it's appreciating where you are at and accepting where you are and that way doors open and you're able to be, once we accept where we are, we're able to be more present to the life we're in and that's when things change.
Good. That's a great point. And I work with a lot of thought leaders and keynote speakers, and nothing is more nerve wracking for a non keynote speaker than speaking in front of keynote speakers, right? And so, like I'll present at Impact 11 about the world of publishing, and so you talk about ribbing, and so some of my keynote speaking friends they'll say, "Hey, this you might want to work on this," and I'm like, "Now you know why I'm nervous speaking in front of you guys."
Have you found it's so true? It is. You know what? They're all brainiacs,
Yes.
and I grew up as a kid being a little dyslexic, and I don't know if you can be a little I was dyslexic, and definitely when I went to school, everything was very excluded.
Yeah.
You were either in a good reading group or a poor reading group, or like nothing, you had your rows and you'd count where you were supposed to read your paragraphs and all that. So I think it's amazing. So I always use humor as a coping mechanism. That was sort of my way of dealing with it. But I find humor looking now, levity really does create a work culture where people, as you said at the beginning of this, can really bring their authentic selves to work.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
And
Yeah.
I've seen it where it also brings the most reserved and shy employees out of their shell. We've got one employee here that's a valued member of the team that's been here, oh gosh, 6, 7 years, and super shy. But you get this person into a group now that he's super comfortable with and familiar with. He's the most beloved person in this entire company,
I
and that's
love that.
because everybody knows him and appreciates him and appreciates his humor and his mannerisms, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Wow. And do you ever have, because I'm imagining, because you're all dealing with such different elements of the book at different stages, no matter who you're working with, and you have six other publishing companies who are under your umbrella. Is that correct?
Yeah, we call them imprints. So
Imprints. Yes.
we'll go to market under different brands for different genres, uh,
Right.
but it's all under one umbrella. And we've got, I don't know, 32 full time employees. So not
Wow.
huge, but not small either.
No, absolutely. And then you take into account all those employees and all their families and how many people are relying on you and that's their entire livelihood and their families,
You're
which
putting
is
more pressure on me, Kate.
I'm so sorry.
I know, I know.
I know. So do you find like are you having any team building days because you do work with so many speakers, like are you having events that bring your company together? Do you do weird Olympics or
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Well, you probably heard this, but things have changed post pandemic,
Yeah.
right? So, what happened during the pandemic is there was a big upheaval in the world of publishing, and the New York houses lost a ton of people. And at that time, they poached some of our really good people. And so, as a response to that, we've had to sort of and it's probably for the best. It is for the best. We've relaxed our work from home policy, and so it'll never be the way it was before. And I'm completely okay with that. I am a dinosaur, relatively speaking, to the younger employees that we've got here, but it's a bigger challenge, right? Bringing them together. It
Yeah.
only can happen 2 or 3 times a year, and so you have to
Okay.
be super deliberate. Like you can't have an impromptu happy hour like we used to have, and so it's an adjustment. It's an adjustment.
Yeah.
It's
No, for
just not
sure.
me. It's just not me.
And are you guys doing a lot of remote meetings together? So you're seeing each other
Yeah,
anyway?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We do, and as a comic, you probably know it's probably hard to deliver a routine remotely. And I'm not saying that I'm delivering a routine, but
No.
just feel more comfortable in person.
Yeah. Yeah, of
And
course.
because there's certain elements, like I think we're reading each other okay, but if we were sitting at this table together,
Oh,
would read
yeah.
each other like 15-20%
Yeah.
better. And so
Absolutely.
I'm adjusting, employees are adjusting, and we're getting together less frequently but more intentionally.
Do you find that or I'm curious to know, do you find that when you are using humor with employees versus, say, clients, people are you changing your sense of humor that way?
Yes, because that's a good question. So I think you have to be mindful. Again, this goes back to
Yeah.
rule number one: know your audience, right? And so,
Yeah.
with respect to our client work, first and foremost, we have to do great work. We have to produce great books on their behalf, right? And so that's got to be taken care of first. And so when you're dealing with employees, I think that you have a little bit more leeway because, at least in my case, I know my employees a little bit more, and
Yeah.
so I'm probably willing to go out on a limb a little bit more with employees than with clients, particularly new clients. But again, as you get to know them,
Know them.
that might change over time.
Aw. And have you ever had like a client or an employee where you're just like, you're way too serious? How are we stopping this right now?
Yeah. So I'll give you a funny story. So again, we do a lot of children's books as well, and I don't know, 20% of the time, clients want to illustrate themselves into a book, and you want to talk about the most fussy, um, fussy approval processes when a
Yeah.
client illustrates themselves into a book. The nose isn't right, the hair is wrong color. People get super picky when it comes to the way they look, and I guess we're all that way, right? I think I sound silly on podcasts, but
Oh, that's
just
so funny.
that's just the way it is. So that's one example of where clients are super super picky when it comes to how they look in their books.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine how.
Same is true, by the way. Same is true for covers, right? And you can judge a book by its cover,
Yes.
and you should be super thoughtful and intentional about your book cover. I got some book covers here behind me. You'll see,
I was looking at them. Yeah.
because it is part of the book packaging. It is part of the book packaging. It is what consumers see. It is how they connect with books immediately. And so, we've got situations where that can be a breeze and we'll do it in 2 or 3 takes. And then sometimes it will take literally 40 takes
Yeah.
and it gets tedious. And so in those times, you got to maintain a little bit of humor as well. And
Absolutely.
understand why the process is taking the course that it's taking, and
I think
understand
it's
the goal.
Yeah, and I think it's because people get scared. They want everything to be perfect, but, I don't know if you've learned this, but I definitely have. Nothing's ever perfect. It's like, okay, I get it. It's so funny because when I published, I just self-published a little book called Second Best Mom because I'm not
Yeah.
that good at it. Anyway, but I just wrote one story a month for over a decade about raising my kids. I put it
Awesome.
together and I just sell it at comedy shows. I didn't try and get
Awesome.
a publisher or anything like that. But what I found was when I first published it, I put a picture of myself on the front. And wow, did I learn very early on, I don't want to look at myself on the front of a book while I'm selling it and standing there. And I was like, oh. And then I saw it out of those. And for the second edition, I actually just put kids screaming, which is way
That's funny.
funnier. Yeah,
That's fine.
it's way
It
funnier.
and by the way, what you just said really resonates with me. Like, of course, maybe it's cliche, but you hear people say that they want to produce A plus work, right? And so that's the goal. Sometimes there's time constraints that make it impossible to spend so much time to produce a 10 or 11 or an
Yeah.
A plus. Sometimes like A is good enough. A minus is good enough. And by the
Yeah.
way, the subjectivity involved in that, taking it from a 9 to 10, um, is something to keep in mind. And I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah, I absolutely. And you know what? Like, because I'm so humor based and levity based, do you find that like when you have you ever encountered challenges when you're dealing with employees and you're just like, you know what, you're just taking yourself way too seriously right now, and how would you as a leader deal with that? Do you have any
Yeah, anybody
techniques?
that's ever had employees
Yeah.
is nodding their head right now,
Yeah.
and so
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
of course, yes, there have been, I don't even not great issues, but like things have all
Yeah.
they always pop up, right? And so what I've found is start with an assumption that everybody is showing up and wants to do the best possible job, right? Start from
Yeah.
that, right? And so as opposed to the opposite, starting from the opposite point, and that really has helped me deal with situations that have come up over the years, right? And I've been doing this 20 years. So you can imagine the situation
Yeah.
from an employer employee perspective. I've probably had to deal with it, right? But I think if you start from a position of everyone's trying their best, everyone
Yeah.
wants to do the best for themselves, for their teamwork, for their teammates, and for their clients, that really is disarming. And that will help you get to a solution and a better outcome way more than if you start with some sort of negative mindset about the employee.
Absolutely. And I love what you said at the beginning of the podcast where you're like, I love the self-deprecating humor and all those things. And I find that really makes people or employees, because I've spoken at a lot of companies at this point. And I can always tell like the energy of a company when I go in, whether people are happy or not happy.
Yeah.
Whether the energy's flowing, whether people can feel they can be themselves, whether people are a cheerleader for each other. And I feel that with you. I feel like you want everyone to succeed. And whether you have to be more playful and make fun of yourself in order to do that, you're fine doing that because you're so confident in who you are.
Well, thank you. So we should do an employee survey to see if they all agree. But I suspect that most would.
What do they call it? A talk a dot? I'll be sending that out after. No, I'm kidding.
A quick survey, a survey monkey.
Do you find it's helped build stronger relationships though? Like if it's between you and another publishing company, if you're going to be connecting with them with humor, do you find it makes a stronger bond between you and whoever you're dealing with?
Yeah, people say that they make decisions. Price is one reason, of course, but it's really about the relationships, right? And so, of course, and particularly with what we're doing in the projects that we're working on, this content is so critically important to our authors, and the reason they're doing a book is is really important, and I understand that, and my team understands that, and so we never lose sight of that. And just being able to connect and convey that feeling, and that we share that sentiment, and we do, is I think what's one of the things that has made us successful over the years, and of course delivering on that after the fact.
Yeah, and do you find the industry has changed over the last 20 years? Like in terms of technologies, must have changed so much, but I feel like the human factor sort of stays the same in that.
Yeah, the human factor does stay the same, and so a lot of discussion about AI right now, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just having this conversation about, is AI going to destroy the world of books? I'm here to tell you, hell no, it's not.
No. Oh my god, if I ask AI to write a joke, it's horrible. Like, it's the worst. I'm like, I'm fine. It's never. And now I'm saying I'm not a robophobe and I'm not robophobic. Uh, but AI, I mean, it does freak you out for sure. You know.
Okay, let's just take your book for example, right?
Okay.
Probably got war stories about raising your kids, right?
Yeah.
And so AI is not going to know the Kate Davis war stories and how rotten these kids have been at times,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah. Naren, they take all my money. They don't even pretend to like me. It's horrible. It's horrible. And I'm outnumbered. Totally outnumbered. Do you have children?
I do, I
And
do.
how
So
many kids do you have?
I feel you here. Okay, so I've got two, and one is 23, and one is 20.
Oh,
So
so our kids are the same age.
yeah, they're out of the house.
Yeah.
Uh, and so instead of dad jokes, they're getting dad memes these days,
Oh,
right?
I love that.
What's worse?
For them, it would probably be a meme for sure. Oh, you could just see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they got to open it first.
How old are
What
your
was
kids?
that?
How old are
They're
your
25,
Okay.
29, and 30. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, I know. I look amazing. Whatever.
Oh my
It's a
gosh.
podcast. No one knows. But I do. And did you use a lot of humor in terms of parenting and your parenting style?
Yes. Yes. They would tell you too much humor and too much bad humor is what they would tell you.
I think all parents are they're always supposed to think that. And do you find because you were saying that you have so many younger people working for you, the humor intergenerationally and just trying to like really connect with different generations. How are you finding that? And are you able to bring humor into those situations?
Yeah, I think for the most part, yes. But I will say it's a little bit harder because I don't see people as much as I used to,
Yeah.
right? And so, that's one thing that the one-on-one conversations with all 30 people in my organization just haven't been happening. And so, when I see them, I want to. I don't want to lead with a joke, right? If I haven't seen you
Yeah.
in 6 months, I don't lead with a joke. I want to have an authentic conversation and work in a bad joke probably toward the end.
Well, they do say, and I do believe this, that humor, serious stuff is always going to happen. It's how we adapt and cope with the stress that counts, right? And
I
when
think
we
that's
can, yeah, and when we can use humor in those moments. Are you planning on any like team building or collaboration, like in terms of your employees anyway? And like even though you're working remotely, when you do come together, do you find that you know, m- if you play a game, or I know it sounds so cheesy when everyone's like, let's do an icebreaker, but I
we
find
prefer
it
the
just
happy hour. We prefer the happy hour over here.
I see. That's why I got to come work for you.
That that's the ultimate icebreaker. Couple drinks, and your
Couple
ice is breaking.
drinks. I think that's where the first time I met you, really, at a bar at Impact 11 in Scottsdale.
Oh
So
no! Oh no! There's a theme.
it's all right. I'm good with that theme. All these youngsters drinking their mocktails way smarter than us now.
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
right.
yeah, I know. And we're just so and okay, have you found you've personally benefited from using humor and having good laughs in your life?
Oh yeah. I mean, now we're talking about life in general, right? And
Yeah,
so,
we are.
life is hard.
Yeah.
Parenting is very hard.
Oh my gosh.
And you wrote a book about it, and there's a lot of ups and downs. And I think being able to look at things from a perspective of humor and gratitude and understanding and perspective, I think all that leads to a more sane life.
I love that. I think that's very wise. And
Yeah.
and it really does. And we all know like the days are long and the years are short, especially when you're
Mm,
raising children.
yeah.
It's just like it's intense. And then when you're trying to balance a company and you have all these employees and your company has grown so much and the industry has grown so much. With self-publishing, with do you find like the actual quality of books because so many people are self-publishing that it's changed for you a lot that way?
Um, I think that again, I'm a big fan of self-publishing. I think that if you take the steps, if you're a general contractor of your own book, and hire somebody that has done covers before, hire an editor that's done it before, there's no reason why you can't create a great book.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you're going through those steps, you'll be in great shape. Now, some people, just either don't have the time or the interest to take those steps on their own, and that's where a company like ours, I think, really comes into play and adds a lot of value.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so, there's no right answer.
Yeah.
There's different approaches, and I love the fact that there's different pathways to publishing available to everybody.
Well, look at 50 Shades of Grey. None of us would have that. Naren.
That's right. That's right. And I will tell you, I did not read those books. I might watch one of the movies, just one.
Ah, well, I will tell you, I read all those books,
Okay. And
and I think
but
my husband was pretty happy for it. So,
that's great. That's great. So you did understand what all the fuss was about.
oh my gosh, I think, like, housewife might have. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Uh, now I'm
It
getting all
didn't matter.
flustered. I'm like, "Oh my god."
You just embarrassed your husband. Nah.
It's okay. He's no longer my soulmate. He's my cellmate. We've been together so long. We're like, ah. I have loved our conversation. Now, okay, so we always like ending the episode with if you have a funny story you'd like to share with everyone.
Okay, sure. A funny story. So, as I mentioned, when we started, we were doing children's books that were licensed by college and professional sports teams. And I thought it'd be a great idea to include illustrations of the current football coach or the current basketball coach in these books. And it seemed like a way for the fans to connect with this content a little more. Hey, I recognize that guy. And so what I didn't think of at the time is coaches are hired to be fired. And so what happened once and then happened like 10 times before I figured out not to do this again is that we'd print thousands of books and all of a sudden a coach would get fired, rendering the book worthless.
Ugh,
And at that point, I realized the power of evergreen content. And so it's applicable to children's books, your thought leadership books, political books for sure. We're doing a ton of books, and we're dropping some just before the election, right? And so my advice is always don't write the book that goes out of date, has an expiration date, come the election in November here in the states. Uh,
yeah.
so that was a lesson that I learned the hard way that hopefully people here listening can take with them.
Yeah, it's so funny. They play one of my old comedy specials here on the Comedy Network all the time,
Yeah.
and I'm like doing like political jokes where the politician has been. It's like I'm doing Reagan jokes now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, like all of a sudden I'm a comic from the 80s in 2024. It's just it doesn't work. It doesn't yeah, evergreen. I've never heard that though before
Evergreen
as
is
yeah,
the best shade of green, evergreen.
evergreen. Stays forever. There you go.
Where are you located, by the way, Kate?
I'm in Toronto.
Okay, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
my
so
aforementioned older daughter lives in Montreal.
oh, is she at university there?
She went to McGill, and she said she wanted to get away. I didn't think she really wanted to get away to another country,
Huh.
but she did, and she loves it. She got a job in Montreal, and
Wow.
she's gonna stay. Might have something to do with her boyfriend, but I don't know.
She was imported. It happens. Canadian boys are very, I raised one. So
Yeah, there you go.
that's amazing. And I love the fact that like your energy is so contagious. Your shiny eyes and your smile. I love it. I just feel like everyone just because of your humor and your levity that you bring to every aspect of your life, I feel like people just connect with that. And it's such a positive, great energy to be around. And I so appreciate you being on Humor in the C Suite.
Oh, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.